Welcome to the Rush to Fail podcast. I'm your host, BJ Gramillion. Today we have Brad Leavitt with us with AFT Construction. And I actually met Brad playing basketball. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. Brad is the most consistent basketball player you'll ever find. So he would be out there every morning. I think, what was it, 5:30 in the morning that you guys play?
I think at 5. We start at 5, yeah.
5 o'clock. Can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
So yeah, 5 o'clock, pretty much every morning, you know, they're out there playing. And I was like, man, this is a really nice guy. You know, I didn't know anything about him. And I just remember everyone making jokes about your Instagram. And I'm like, what is going on? And everyone was like, oh, Brad, are you sure it's okay? Like, you know, are you going to be missing out on your posts? And so I was like, what is this going? So I looked him up and I'm like, hey, Brad's kind of a big deal.
No.
Like, okay, now I get it. But here's the thing with Brad, and this is why I'm excited to have him on, because he has a secret that I've been dying to figure out how. So he has figured out how to basically cram a week's worth of work into one day. And then he just consistently does that over and over again. And so I am very excited to figure out how in the world you're able to do so much with the same amount of time that all of us have. Mm-hmm. What are some secrets? I gotta know.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I think we're talking about how we consume just like podcasts, right? Like I'm a big podcaster like you and consuming information. And I think it's just like anything, right? It's like, you know, anyone that works out, right? You can work out physically and, you know, gain certain strength. I think, you know, people's brain is very similar. I learned, you know, especially being in college. I think maybe it traces back to when I was in college, you know, young dad, had my daughter. I'm working full time, trying to like support my family, going to school full time. I got permission from the dean to take, you know, 18 credits plus online. So I was taking 21, 24 credits and then working, right? Family. So you just figure out, okay, I think a lot, you know, Stephen R. Covey talks about this. I mean, you think about like your productivity, right? There's certain charts, like there's certain things where you have to focus all your attention and there's certain things that can maybe move around. And so, you know, I obsess about my calendar. I obsess about like where I'm at during the day. And then, again, just multitasking. I don't know. It's, I don't know. I've been pretty fortunate to be able to like, you know, for me, it works, you know, just as fast as it's moving. But I think at the core of it's just be consistent with anything, right? Yeah. People say, what's the secret to social media? You know, there is value in having good content, right? But but the reality is be consistent, right? I've been posting every day for 7 years. Like I don't miss. I've had a podcast like you, and we were talking about, I've been doing my podcast almost 4 years. I haven't missed a week. Like, so I think a lot of life is just being consistent, and then, you know, results will follow. So,
man, so cool. Yeah. And to that point, I think Brad, and you know, I had Steve Trang on the podcast last week, and it was incredible. He's very similar to that. And I've realized something about myself. I envy and appreciate people that are incredibly consistent, because I'm not, right. And it's something that I work on, you know, all the time, and I'm getting better, I feel like, at it. But I've realized that that is the thing, and there's a correlation without question. You know, when it comes to people that are very successful in any industry, pick any industry, you're gonna find for the most part they're very consistent. You know, people what they do, and so that. Did you always know that? Did it take you time to figure out how to become consistent, or have you just always kind of been that way?
Yeah, I think it takes time. I mean, definitely at a younger age that was not the case, right? But you're kind of forced into it in some way. Like I mentioned, for college, for me, like I kind of had to be that way. You know, especially running a business, you try to figure it out. But I think there's another step in there too, outside of consistency. You know, fortunately in my profession, I'm working with a lot of really successful entrepreneurs and business people. Yeah. What's interesting, especially my most successful ones, these are people running large companies, have done really well, a lot of commitments, and they are so fast to respond, like so fast. And something I learned is like, you know, it's information in, information out. And especially in my profession and how I'm communicating, something that's really common is you have to write stuff down. You have to understand how you're tracking things. So like BJ, if you're to give me an assignment or a task or call me as a client that there's an issue, you know, I'm not trying to memorize that. You know, I'm immediately, I don't want to say delegating, but at least communicating with the correct channel where that needs to go. And if it's internal that I have to address, you know, whether you have like a to-do list or a task list, or you're using project management software, or you're emailing yourself, voice text, you know, reminders, whatever it is, you have to find something that's organizing and tracking. And so I tell people information in, information out. Like it's just consistently, and then making sure you're following up. So I've seen that even people that are really successful, like they're really quick to get answers out and not let things linger. and address them.
Interesting. Yeah, that's such a good point. And I should probably back up too for those of you that don't know Brad. And sometimes I'm like, everyone has to know Brad at this point, right? If you don't know Brad, it's probably because you don't make enough money. So
No,
I'm just
that's not.
I'm just messing. But no, Brad started a company. It's called AFT Construction, a finer touch. Clearly your market, with the name is geared towards people, that are looking to build luxury, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you're the antithesis of an Arizona tract home builder, right? And I'm sure everything that they do, you want to be the opposite of, maybe outside of the efficiency. I'm sure that they're very efficient in what they do. But you guys build incredible custom homes, and I'll put a link to the show notes as well. So everyone should go to AFT Construction, look at some of the stuff he's done. Better yet, go on your Instagram, feed, and he'll have. The thing that I love about your feed though is the fact that you're not just showing, hey, look at us, we're so awesome, like we built these amazing, incredible homes. You also take the time to just explain like the little details that go into all the little things, so people can both learn and appreciate what you guys have built. And so maybe take us a little bit back on like your journey. How did you start AFT? What were you doing before AFT? Maybe we start there.
It's interesting. I'm glad one thing I'll touch on is you mentioned just one of my biggest pet peeves or turnoffs, if you will, social media, is this like overzealous sales approach. And what I mean by that is something that I think is really unique to companies that are successful is they're not out there to disparage the competition. They're not out there to say, hey, call me. Like that's like a total turnoff for me.
Mm-hmm.
You should be really confident in your brand and product. Educate, right? Educate your customer so that they're coming to you, they're understanding it, and like you'll see with our stuff, it's like, hey, here's a detail. Check this out. Here's some thought leadership as to the why, right? That we're doing things, as opposed to, hey, you're building a house, call me. Like you'll never see that in any content on any platform.
That's true.
But going back to like journey wise, I mean, for me, it's interesting. People like ask about social media, and I grew up as an electrician. My dad was blue collar. My mom was at home in San Diego, and we were super blue collar for sure growing up. And was fortunate to work on these incredible builds in Southern California as an electrician. So as a trade partner, subcontractor, and I'm like, I want to do that. Like I want to build these amazing homes. Like how do I get there? And went to college. I did construction management up at BYU in Utah, and then moved to Phoenix after in 2005. And fortunately, I had some career path opportunities where, one of the core beliefs I have is chase experience, not money, right? So if you're chasing experience, and so I had some opportunities where essentially I was underpaid for the role, but I was able to work on some really high-end luxury product. And so experience-wise, it really helped me, catapult me early in my career. And when I started AFT, being pretty young at the time, and social media was starting to, make its way, Instagram started becoming pretty popular. And I was trying to get into the custom market and the luxury market, and it was like impossible. I couldn't figure out how to get in there. I couldn't, architects and designers wouldn't return my calls. They wouldn't talk to me. I mean, as much as I would try to beat down their door. And even though I'd experienced prior in my career as a company, AFT, a finer touch, we didn't have a portfolio of that. And so social media became a way where I could, to that point, just start documenting. Like, here's the attention to detail, here's the quality, here's the site cleanliness, here's, how we're doing things. And fortunately, that resonated with people, not just our followers, but these same architects and designers that would not contact me. Well, now non-soliciting, I could follow them, I could support them, and then they could see what we were doing, to the point where these same architects that would return my calls are seeing, the waves we're making per se. And they're like, Brad, we need to have dinner. Let's sit down. What are you doing on social media, specifically LinkedIn, which I find a ton of value in, and also Instagram. And so I would consult them in their social media and just kind of my attack of it. And then those relationships and friendships were built. It's all about value. I brought value to them. And then at this point, it's like, okay, well, now let's open this door to like bring value from a contractor perspective. And the rest is history. Then you just take that little stepping stone, you kick the door open, if you will, and then just keep building on it. I mean, that's any business. You just have to, you can't settle. One thing I'll leave is it's really interesting is, you hear, try to remember the author, but anyways, it was essentially like, when do you win at business? Like, when are you totally at that top tier in business? And the application is like marriage. Do you win at marriage or do you stay married? Right. So it's
Mhm.
like in business, do you win at business or do you stay in business? Are you continually making changes to refine your system, your product, your communication, that customer experience, that customer journey, so that you're just keep increasing, the brand name?
Mhm. Yeah, and you brought up two incredible points there that I think are important to touch on. I think that number one is lead with value, right? And so don't try and sell people on anything, right? Like you are bringing value to them, and then they naturally will be coming to you like, hey, like we need to work together because first gave me so much value to the point where it's like, yeah, it's a no brainer. I want to do business with you, and then I also think that yeah, like knowing that your social media, like knowing that you're young. I think that I remember when I was just starting off, with our business, and I would be so nervous because I was young and I'm meeting with people that are established, they have good money, they're investors, they've got millions of dollars, and so I just remember feeling so out of place, with where I was. And so I love that you were able to take social media and use that as like a stepping stone to like eventually build up enough content where it was like, no, like, yeah, I'm young, clearly, but that doesn't matter. Look at all this experience that I have, and so that was your way of, I guess, bridging that gap of, because I think now I even still to this day I look at people that are young. I'm like, they don't know anything, like they don't have any experience, they haven't been around, and so anyways, I love that you did that. So yeah, you mentioned LinkedIn. That is something that I'm curious about as well. How have you leaned into LinkedIn? How has that been something that you've been able to leverage for your business? What have you done? And is it different? Is your approach different with LinkedIn versus, let's say, Instagram?
Yeah, I would say the thing about LinkedIn is it's one of the few organic platforms that's out there. And what I mean by that, it's not like a pay for play. Like Instagram and Facebook, there is a pay for play like advertising spectrum. Essentially, the algorithms are really from those that are developing the software. They're trying to say, okay, BJ, I understand you better than yourself, so I'm going to formulate the content on your feed based on what I think you want to
Mhm.
consume. Which means for me as a builder, they may think, even though you follow me, they may think that my content's not interesting to you, so you're never going to see it. And so immediately my content on these platforms is probably only reaching 5% of my follower base.
Hmm.
95% of those that follow me on Instagram, Facebook are never seeing anything I'll post unless they're going through the search bar and finding me and saying, I haven't seen AFT stuff in a while. Whereas LinkedIn's totally different. And again, going back to Instagram, if you like my post on Instagram, that's great. Vanity metric, I get another like, another view, that's fine, And we say the vanity metric because, that's what it's about, likes and follows, right?
Mhm.
LinkedIn's totally different. You go like my post on LinkedIn, well, now all of BJ's network sees that you like my post.
Hmm.
And so LinkedIn is not just a resume builder. It's just not a job hire platform. You can really create the narrative like we're discussing, on these platforms about who you are as a brand. And the thing about LinkedIn is that these are executives and CEOs and doctors and lawyers and realtors and brokers and architects and design, like everyone that I'm either selling my product to that's a potential customer or networking with, from subcontractor to supplier to architect and designer. And so I can actually go direct, right? LinkedIn, 15 years ago, if I want to find an executive at a certain company, how are you going to find that? It's going to be really hard to do that. I can go on LinkedIn and find it right away
Hmm.
and connect with them. And what I love about it, you touched on this, that solicitation, there's nothing more frustrating than a vendor that reach out to me, like we connect and then immediately they're selling me something.
Hate it.
Yeah. And it's all about value, right? And what I mean by that, it's interesting. I've seen people take the strategy that, hey, they're going to like every post I do. They're going to comment, they're going to engage. Well, I see that.
Hmm.
And then 6 months later, after they've created some of a relationship, it's never been salesy. Now the door's open like, hey, I may have a solution. I may have a product that, would love, to catch up for a minute and be sensitive to your time. And it's the same tactic I had, right? I'm not, I'm going to connect and engage with these architects and designers. And then eventually that relationship, flowers into something. And so I always recommend that that's easy tactic for any supplier or vendor too, as they're trying to meet with their potential, deal that they're trying to close.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, so AFT as a company, I've seen it rise meteorically, right? Like, I mean, just massive explosion in, social media. Obviously that's where you spent a lot of your time and focus and energy on, which brought in, I'm sure, a lot of, high net worth people, some pretty cool clients, I'm sure. What are maybe a couple clients that you were able to work with, or that you are currently working with, that we would all, I'm sure, know, that you're, I guess, currently building for?
Yeah,
I'm always just curious, right?
Yeah,
This
so
is the vanity side. Brad is not a bragger, so
I'm not,
and I don't know if you can disclose that or not.
I'm
And
sure
so
I can, and they would have no opposition to it. But we've been
Okay.
really fortunate to work with some of the like Cardinals players. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of anyone that
Professional
follows,
athletes.
yeah, anyone that follows NFL knows. So like Hassan Reddick is a good friend of mine, and he played for the
Cool.
Cardinals. Now he's with the Eagles
Yeah.
and had a great run and to the Super Bowl there, and been a good friend. We did a project for him here, and through that, met DJ Humphries, who we're working for doing a project, who's
Cool.
left tackle of the Cardinals. And there are, and what's interesting too, is that you never know. Like there was someone, speaking of basketball, how you and I met, someone had played
Yeah.
with us there.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of my highest net worth clients, and you'd have no idea.
Love
And
it.
the thing is, we have clients from all over, second home clients, primary residents from all over the world and country, that find us through different avenues. I mean, word of mouth is important, reputations, of course, important, social media and all these different platforms that leads come from all different channels. And, a lot of times it's pretty unassuming, where these clients come from, but we've been fortunate to work for some really neat ones. We're working right now in design for a couple people and a couple guys in MLB and NHL, which is fun. So
do you guys see how like uncomfortable he got when I asked that question? He's just like, because that's just Brad. He is like the most humble dude you'll ever meet, and so he's like, I don't want to talk about any of that stuff. But I think again, that's why people are drawn to you, though, because hey, guys like myself, right, where you're just like, who is this guy? Don't even know him, but you treat everyone the same, right? And that's unique. It really is, because I feel, and I've known plenty of people that have made it, and been very successful in what they do. And it's like, man, you change. What happened, right? Like you all of a sudden, yeah, sure, your bank account is doing better, but all of a sudden it's like, you're not nearly as fun to hang out with,
That'll
because
never
I think
happen.
that it kind of
That'll
went to your
never
head.
happen.
And it doesn't.
No.
Like, I don't know how you do that, or if it's just, in your nature or whatever. But anyways, it's just something that I've always been like, see, Brad will talk to anyone. Here's another question I've always had. I've asked this too, because I know some of the guys that work with you. And I'm like, is he the one that is responding to all of those comments on social media, LinkedIn, and all that stuff? And they're like, yes, it is him. It is not like an assistant. Is that still the case? Are you still able to literally respond to?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, I think, and to the core, but I think there's a lot of value in authenticity, right? I mean, I had great parents. I grew up, really humble background, and so that's just at the core of like how I was brought up. My parents are amazing. I just admire them so much. My dad passed away last year, but they're just like, what I really appreciate about my mom and dad is they there were just things in this world that weren't important to them, right? They had core values that were important to them, and they really showed that. And they're just material things, even though it's funny, I'm building like these amazing material projects, but at the core of them, that's not who they were. And so that was instilled in me. But going back to your question, I think, there's value in authenticity. I value a lot like our brand and our reputation and how we communicate that to the public. And so for that reason, I've never subcontracted that out. I've never hired it out. I've to this day, even as big as we've grown as a company, I am the one responding to every DM on Instagram and on LinkedIn. But with that, you have to have good people. And some of my people, like Spencer and so many others who and we have, one thing I think is really fortunate for me is, I have 6 of my 22 employees own companies. Like these are business owners that were in my shoes that are at a point in their life where they're like, it's stressful running a business, it's stressful running a company, and now they're part of the AFT family. And so I have everyone in our team, like we don't have turnover, we don't have retention issues. And so we have a really unique company culture, a really unique brand of people that work for us, high caliber, and they work really hard. And that allows, me being a little bit more of the visionary to focus on the direction. And then we have implementers that are implementing that. So, that's really key with any business, is to make sure that you understand your strength and weakness, and, from a visionary to implementation, and who's handling what, and, clarifying job roles and expectations, and making sure, my goal is that when people come to work, they understand what their job role is. And when they understand that, they know how they're held accountable. They know how that's, tasked financially for them and their well-being. And then, we can track that better. And then they have to believe in the brand, of course. And, you solve those two things in any business, could be on the path to success. So,
Yeah. I mean, you touched on something that I think just about every business owner is struggling with, and that is retaining great employees for the long haul, right? Like it's just so uncommon to have great people stick with a company because typically, like there's so many opportunities out there. So how did you figure that out? How are you able, I know that culture is a big thing, but are there things or people or, roles that you've found that has really contributed to the ability to keep people long-term? Like, is that something you've learned over time, maybe where you failed and you're like, hey, like I'm not doing that?
So you have, failure is a big part of the podcast,
Yep.
right? It's understanding for everybody's success. That was not the case early on, right? I struggled with hiring the right person, losing them. That was a big issue early on. And that has not been the issue for the last 4 or 5 years. And really what I could say is there's this onboarding process, especially in construction, but this is relevant to any industry, is that too often we hire people, we kick them off the pier, and it's sink or swim, right?
Yeah.
They can swim, great. They'll figure it out, and we got a great employee. If they sink, well, we'll move on to the next one. And what I failed to realize from many successful companies at onboarding, when they come on, and this goes back to the core, is what's the training process look like? How are you training them? How are they understanding the brand? How are they understanding the company culture? How are they integrating with the rest of the team? And then most clearly, like I said, there's two things. They have to, one, believe in the company and the product and the brand. But number two, they have to understand what their role is. How's the baton passed? Is there double work? Are they being exhausted because there's no clear definition of what they're supposed to do? Do they not have the training and support and oversight? And so it's layered. Any company's layered from owner down to, directors down to, field and office, and every company has these layers. And so understanding when the baton goes, when someone calls me, I'm getting that first job lead to completion, what does that sales channel and funnel look like? What does that process look like? And keep in mind, a lot of our customers are engaged for 4 years, 5 years. I mean, these are long relationships. And so when you clearly define that and define job roles and give them training and you give them support and technology and continuing education, then it's just everything else is window dressing, right? And frosting as far as, salary and benefits and health insurance. And those things are super important. But again, those are just add-ons, company outings to the core of what makes a company successful.
Man. Are you ever going to put together some sort of training program to show people how they can achieve that? Because I think you'd make a lot of money doing that.
And it's funny you say that. I mean, to me, again, it's like, we just had our conference, our Contractors Coalition Summit. So specifically to our industry, these are things I wish I knew when I started my business. And so we do 2 a year, and we have 30 builders all over the country that sign up. And essentially we teach them this. As far as a company, again, right now, to me, again, it's like, it's not chasing the money side, even though there's opportunity. I'm really focused on, we have really good people. And I want to make sure that right now that we're building like the opportunities for them in their career and to support their families. And I believe in our people, and I obsess about it, right? That they have what they need means wise, financially, benefit package, time off with their family. And so at the core, that's my priority, and who knows down the road, but right now, it's focusing on the task at hand. But
yeah. So I am curious, because I everything that I've seen that you've done in your career has just turned to gold, right? It's almost like you got that finer touch, right? So it's like everything you touch just turns to like gold. So I'm sure that again, social media can be very deceiving, right? And then all of us can just see like, oh, look at like the end result, but we don't see the struggle, that goes behind it. And yes, like that's a big reason for the podcast. So I'm just curious, have you ever had any big swings in your career that just totally caught air? Like you didn't even connect, where you fell flat on your face? Or has it just been more or less just kind of like, no, it's just kind of worked with whatever I picked?
No, I wish that it was just this like seamless like growth chart. Like that's never been the case. I mentioned some of the hiring issues early on.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges as it relates to our field, and I think this is for any field, is not really understanding cost of goods sold. job costing, understanding the cost of client acquisition, right? I mean, you could watch Shark Tank and you see these things and they drill them on the stuff and they know their numbers. It's one thing when you're selling a widget. It's another thing when you're a fee business, right?
Yeah.
And so, when I look at mistakes and I tell people, they're like, Brad, if you were to start over, or if I'm starting my company, where should I focus? And I'm really big on that. Look, you have to understand the financial side of your business. And it's really hard because you don't know what you don't know. And so you better quickly get with a mentor group or come to the summit or these other things to really understand at the core, how do you price a job? I had a guest on my podcast, Tim Wingate, and he's like, he's accounting specifically to business. And he's like, it's estimating and it's scheduling. You have to understand the core of that to be successful as a business. And you need to have whether it's like a CFO or a company that's doing your financial management to understand, again, not loopholes, but there are strategies to tax and building companies and when the right time to hire and how you're forecasting for that and, savings and so position yourself with people that are really savvy in your industry to understand the financial growth. Again, you don't win, you continue to stay in business. And so for me, we had too many mistakes, and I laugh that I tell people that I paid people to build their house. It's not a good strategy. You're not going to be in business very long doing that. And so at the core of it, there were a lot of mistakes, just not understanding value, time, cost. And that's what took us some time. And then hiring practices and so many other things running businesses that you just don't know till you get into it. And, looking back, I would have definitely been more pragmatic and focused on financial, scheduling, estimating. And even if you're a single operator in any business, understand, like I said, document it, write down, what's that sales channel look like? When, if you're handling the whole process, well, at some point you're going to hire. So you've got to pass the baton, and how's that baton move? And so, I think too many of us focus in the business and we're not focusing on the business.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So interesting. And I love what you said, because, and I don't know how long how long ago you started the summit for construction.
Yeah, just a year and a half ago. So
year and a half. Okay. And that's twice a year. And then you started that with maybe someone else, or was it you, or how
yeah. So really what it came down to is, fortunately, and this goes back to, in addition to some of the conversation we're having, but look at other markets too. And I'll go back to your question, but look at other markets. How are they doing branding? How are they running their business? How are they successful in their industry? How does that apply to you? Go to networking events, find mentors, network with people inside, outside your industry. Well, what was happening, I was fortunately doing that, for years and figuring out, okay, how does this apply to me in my business? How can I build off this? And, joining mastermind groups and other entrepreneurship groups, and entrepreneurship's tough. And what ended up happening is, people would reach out to me and say, Brad, I want to shadow you for a day. Can you mentor me? And it was a lot. It wasn't like one or two, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, especially with my time, I just don't have time for you to fly in and shadow me, no matter the cost. It's just not relevant to what, as you mentioned, what I'm trying to accomplish in a day. And my life is pretty busy between 6 kids and family and work. And so it was actually my wife that came to me and said, hey, Brad, in the interior design world, they have these design camps, and designers fly out. They do this mastermind for 3 days, and they teach them all things interior design, how to run their business. And she's like, why don't you do that? And I'm like, well, it sounds easy, but teaching and instructing is one thing, but running an event and website and sponsorships and events, this is a lot that goes into these. So long story short, I was flown out to speak in Minnesota at this event called BizCom. And I was one of the keynote guest speakers there at the event. And the event was perfectly run, just amazing to the, VIP status, and, definitely a super well, 250 people paid good money to go to this event and nailed it. And it's actually a builder in Minnesota that runs this event, Construction Style. So I called them and I said, hey, I have this idea. Can we partner and you run the event? Because you have this event coordination. They're like, we're in immediately. And then, because it's such a comprehensive event, our goal is that when people attend this, that within 30 minutes, they get their value. And I know we have a mutual connection, Brady, who attended our first one. And fortunately, we've had 90 guests come over 3 events, and everyone has said 30 minutes made our money back. Well, I wanted someone who's a different operation than me. So there's a builder out of Boston,
Mm-hmm.
Nick Schiffer with NS Builders. And so between the three of us, we started the event, and fortunately it's been a success. And we just finished ours. We did the first one in Nashville, then California, and now Scottsdale. We go to Austin in September. And this one was really unique because, well, all of them have been, but it's really fun to see that every person that comes, everyone is just like, I want to do a testimonial. And this was way better than I thought it'd be. So it's just, business is hard. Any business is hard. So it's nice to be around individuals that, uh, don't make the same mistakes I did. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You are preaching to the choir. I've realized that the minute that I joined masterminds and leaned into that heavily, right, business exploded, right, 10x and it was just because you could take the collective. So I'm actually part of the Collective Genius, right, which is a great name for it because you're taken from all these different people with experiences nationwide. They're like, don't try that. Let me just save you all that money, time, energy. That doesn't work. This works. This marketing channel works. This, and then they're like, here's our business model. Here, take it. And that's honestly what I was able to do for Tennessee was, it was at an event like that where when the market shifted, I was like, what am I going to do? And there were a couple guys there that had a turnkey business, and I was like, that makes perfect sense. Like I could totally do that in Tennessee. And so, really, I think that's such an awesome thing that you're doing. The other thing that I love about what you did there was, okay, you got to run an event. You know nothing about running an event, right? You're not going to be an expert in that field. And so instead of being like, I'm sure you could figure it out, I'm sure you could learn it, you're a smart guy, but time is important. And you're like, why would I do that? I'm going to go find someone that did an incredible job. Hey, let's partner. It's so much easier to do it that way. They leaned into their superpower. Your superpower is going to be teaching, coaching, training. And so everyone gets to do what they love. Right. And I'm sure that would also drain your energy, is having to put together all the event and have to do all the invitations and blah, 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 like to make it a great experience. And so you just said, no, we're going to make this a world-class experience, bring in all the experts in their industry, and then, have an awesome event. And so I love that. So it's 3 days, twice a year. You go to different places, every 6 months, it sounds like. And there's 30 people that get them that are.
Yeah, we have 30 attendees. And what's awesome is we have sponsors relative to the industry, from windows to countertops, automation, home automation, everything. And, like Builder Trend's been there, and Anderson Windows, and, Crestron, and Diggs, and these, Emser Tile. So anyways, the reason I'm bringing it up is because what's unique about any industry is, specifically to us, it's one thing to run your business. And again, this is kind of a plug for social media. Yes, it's a great, lead generation, advertising, create the narrative. Additionally, you meet people in your industry in other parts of the country that don't compete. So now you have mastermind, networking, questions, Q&A all the time, and you could build friendships. Third aspect of that is now you have a relationship with your vendors or suppliers, right? And you come to this event, now you're with the suppliers that run social media, that are doing sponsorships. So what's awesome, these builders that come, not only they're getting the instruction, but now they're meeting vendors that now after this are doing, fee for posts on their social media, and have that aspect. And even if it's not that you're collaborating or getting free product or doing social media posts or whatever it is, you have a direct connect, name to face. When you're in a bind, we've all dealt with COVID, supply chain's been an issue. But when you could go to executives at suppliers and get product and access to things, that's the thing. It's a relationship world. It's a relationship business. And too many of us, like you said, it's like, I value time, not money. So with time, I'm going to rely on experts in that industry. And then, that rising tide raises all ships, and it gives everyone opportunity. And then, my value is time. So, I can focus on that.
Man, that's so cool. Is there another project that you're working on? I know that really you got the construction side going. Obviously, that's the core business. That everything springs off of that. Started that event about a year and a half ago, you said. And then, is there anything else that you're working on or working towards?
Yeah. So we again, and this is part of the summit, is we'll be having like an online course. So people that can't attend, that's a different aspect. So we're gonna be doing that. We have the podcast I do, which is like more thought leadership. It's really catered to entrepreneurship, business owners, with a little touch of construction on some episodes. Have our business, but for our business specifically, we'll be expanding, right? And we've kept it close to the vest on the territories we're going to, but we are expanding across the U.S. And, we have great people, and there's some great markets that align with who we are as a brand. And we've been fortunate to build little bit more of a national brand. And so there's some opportunities open up because of that.
Very cool. Love it. Okay. Well, we're going to end with, we have 3 questions that we ask everyone. And so, in fact, let me just make sure that I don't miss any of them. The first question that we always ask is, like your favorite book or podcast that you've come across over the past year.
Yeah, I love Good to Great. Good to Great is a phenomenal book. Yeah. I think everyone should read that. There's just a ton of value, especially as you're looking, to take your company to the next level. Yeah. Love that book too.
What was your biggest growth year? For you, I'm sure it's like every year. It seems like you're growing in leaps and bounds. But was there a year that you can look back on and be like, man, I grew so much in that year?
Yeah, I think, I think there's been a couple tipping points, right? Like Malcolm Gladwell talks about that. And so tipping points, growth years, I think there's in life in general, there's a couple years that stand out, but just business related to AFT specifically, probably around 2018. 2018 is this kind of like perfect storm where we were on the right track, got some really good core people in the business, had some signature projects, social media started to take off. And so it's kind of just this year where we were really positioned for where we are now, 5 years later.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And I know you've actually touched on this a couple of times already, but is there any piece of advice that you would give yourself, if you're able to go back, let's say 10 years, and knowing what you know now, and this is, I'm sure, a big part of what you do for your, group that you meet with, is showing them, hey, look, here's all the mistakes that I've made. Here's all the things that I've done that have worked, right? And so is there some piece of advice that you would give yourself, your younger self, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit. I talked about chase experience, not money. That's one thing. But more importantly, outside of the financial thing I talked about, find a mentor. Business mentor, and it doesn't have to be direct to your business, but it could be someone in your line of business. And you can do that through social media. There's a lot of channels, but find a mentor as you start to grow your business. Find a mentor group, right, that you can associate and share ideas with. I'm in a Builder 20 group. It's a group of 20 like-minded individuals that own businesses around the country. And again, it's just more education. The more that you can, and again, don't just pigeonhole yourself to educate in your industry. Make sure you find mentors and people that are successful, such as yourself, BJ, outside your industry, because there's just so much value you can learn from others. So speak less, listen more, right?
Man, yeah, so good. Yeah, hopefully everyone can, rewind that, listen to that advice, because there's so many good points that you brought up there, but you've said it now several times, and it's something that I need to be working on, as well. I think so many people don't realize the value of time, like they clearly just are like, hey, I'm just going to go clock in, clock out. And they don't give it a lot of thought. Like, man, you're spending all this time, just in a rat race, more or less, just going to work. And you're not realizing like what you're giving up with all that time that you have, because you have 6 kids, I have 5 kids. And you start to realize after a while, like, man, what am I doing? I'm definitely trading a paycheck, for, time with my family. And so there does have to come a point where you're like, that's enough. I got to figure out and take charge of, making sure that I'm putting way more value on my time, because it is limited. That's a very limited resource. And I don't know if enough of us take the time to appreciate the fact that that is the case. And so it's funny, just being with Brad here for the past hour, he is just, fidgeting. He's ready to go. He's just like, okay, what's next? What's next? And you can feel that energy, which I get it. Like I can understand why your team, they take on the persona of the leader. And so you're an action-based person that's just like, let's go, let's do it right the first time. And, just go. And I love that.
Like, yeah, it's funny. I'm not nervous. I just shake my leg all the time. My wife says she knows when I'm finally asleep because my leg quits shaking. So
really,
it's
just constantly. Just always that's moving, so awesome. I'm very similar. Like, I'm very fidgety. My wife always makes fun of me too. So that's funny you say that. Well, this has been so much fun, Brad. I can't thank you enough for taking the time, speaking the time to come on the show, learn so much. And where can people find you? And where would you like them to go?
Sure. So pretty consistent, if they go to our websites, aftconstruction.com. If they go to any social media channel, it's AFT Construction. LinkedIn, specifically Brad Leavitt, right? And again, podcast, if you search Brad Leavitt or AFT Construction on any podcast platform, we're there. And so either Brad Leavitt, AFT Construction should come up on most things. So.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.